The rain slammed against the glass walls of the Manhattan penthouse. But inside, the air was colder. Ethan Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Enterprises, stood like a statue, his steel-gray eyes slicing through the trembling executive before him. "You're fired," he said, voice sharp enough to cut diamond. And the room held its breath. No one dared cross Ethan. At 32, he was a legenda, ruthless visionary who turned a crumbling family business into a billion-dollar empire. His presence commanded boardrooms, silenced critics, and left admirers trailing in his wake. But to me, Jamie Parker, he was just the guy who stole my breath every time he walked into the coffee shop where I worked. I wasn't supposed to be here, perched on the edge of this corporate battlefield. I was a 24-year-old art school dropout, scraping by on tips and dreams of painting something that mattered. My life was a mess of unpaid bills and half-finished canvases. But when Ethan's driver handed me an invitation to tonight's gala, I couldn't say no. The note was handwritten, his sharp script unmistakable. "Be there. E." The gala was a glittering cage of wealth and power. Chandeliers dripping light over men in tuxedos and women in gowns that cost more than my rent. I tugged at my borrowed blazer, feeling like an imposter among the elite. Ethan stood at the center, untouchable, his tailored suit hugging his broad shoulders. His dark hair was swept back, and his jawline could have been carved from marble. Everyone orbited him: investors, socialites, even the mayor, but his eyes found me across the room. "Jamie," he said, my name a low rumble as he approached. The crowd parted like he was Moses and they were the Red Sea. "You came." I swallowed, my throat dry. "You didn't exactly give me a choice." His lips twitched, the closest thing to a smile I'd ever seen from him. "Good." I'd known Ethan for 6 months, ever since he started coming to Brewed Awakening, the dingy coffee shop where I slung lattes. He'd order a black coffee, no sugar, and sit in the corner, typing furiously on his laptop. I noticed him because he was impossible to miss: sharp suits, sharper eyes, and an aura that screamed, "Don't get close." But I'm an idiot, so I got close anyway. It started with a sketch. One slow afternoon, I doodled him on a napkin, his profile, the way his brow furrowed when he worked. He caught me, and instead of being pissed, he asked to keep it. The next day, he asked for another. Soon, he was commissioning sketches, paying me enough to cover my rent. I thought it was pity, but the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the room felt like something else. Tonight, though, was different. The gala was his world, and I was a tourist. He guided me through the crowd, his hand brushing my lower back, sending sparks up my spine. "Why am I here, Ethan?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Because I wanted you to see this," he said, gesturing to the room. "And because I need you to do something for me." I frowned. "What? Draw you in a tux?" "No." His eyes darkened, intense. "I need you to paint something. For me. For this." He nodded toward a sleek banner announcing Caldwell Enterprises' new art foundation. "I'm launching a program to fund young artists. I want your work to be the centerpiece." My heart stopped. You're joking. I don't joke about business. His voice was firm, but there was something softer underneath. Something I couldn't name. Your art. Jamie. It's real. It's what this city needs. I wanted to laugh. To tell him he was insane for thinking my scribbles could mean anything to his world. But the way he looked at me, like he believed in me more than I believed in myself, made my chest ache. I nodded, unable to speak. The night blurred champagne. Small talk. Ethan's hand grazing mine when he thought no one was looking. But I felt the weight of eyes on us. Whispers followed, sharp and cutting. Who's that kid with Caldwell? Some barista he's slumming with. I tried to ignore them, but they stung. As the gala wound down, Ethan pulled me aside, into a quiet corner near the terrace. The city sprawled below, a maze of lights and secrets. You don't belong here, he said, and my stomach dropped. Before I could respond, he added, not because you're less than them, because you're more. I stared at him, my heart pounding. Ethan, what are you saying? He stepped closer, so close I could feel the heat of him. I'm saying I see you, Jamie, and I can't stop seeing you. The air between us crackled, and for a moment, I thought he might kiss me. But then his phone buzzed, and the spell broke. He glanced at it, his face hardening. I have to go. Stay here. I'll find you. He vanished into the crowd, leaving me reeling. I didn't know what this was: attraction, manipulation, or something deeper, but I knew one thing. Ethan Caldwell was a storm, and I was already caught in it. The next morning, I woke to a text from Ethan, meet me at the studio. 10 a.m. No explanation, just an address in Soho. My head was still spinning from the gala, from his words, from the way his touch lingered like a bruise I didn't want to heal. I arrived at a sleek, converted warehouse, its brick facade hiding a cavernous space flooded with light. Inside, Ethan waited, his suit traded for a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that made my mouth go dry. He stood beside a blank canvas, larger than anything I'd ever worked on, surrounded by paints and brushes that screamed money. This is yours, he said, gesturing to the space. Your studio. For the foundation's centerpiece. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. You're giving me a studio. I'm giving you a chance. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned with something fierce. Show me what you can do, Jamie. I wanted to argue, to tell him I wasn't ready, that I wasn't good enough. But the way he looked at me like I was already more than I believed silenced my doubts. I picked up a brush, the weight of it grounding me, and started painting. Days bled into weeks. The studio became my world, the canvas my confession. I painted New York, its grit, its pulse, its hidden corners where people like me carved out lives in the shadows. Ethan visited almost daily, watching in silence as colors took shape. Sometimes he'd bring coffee, black for him, a latte for me. Other times, he'd just sit, his presence a quiet anchor. But it wasn't all easy. The whispers from the gala followed us. Ethan's world was brutal, and I was an outsider. His CFO, a shark named Victoria Langston, cornered me one afternoon in the studio. Her heels clicked like gunfire on the concrete floor. "You're a distraction," she said, her voice dripping venom. "Ethan's playing with you, but don't think it means anything. He doesn't do feelings." I gripped my paintbrush, my knuckles white. "You don't know him." She laughed, sharp and cold. "Oh, honey, I know him better than you ever will." Her words clung to me, feeding my insecurities. Ethan was a fortress, impenetrable. Yet every glance, every fleeting touch, made me think he was letting me in. Was I delusional? Was this just a game to him? One night, after a long day of painting, I found him waiting outside the studio. The street was quiet, the city holding its breath. "You're doubting yourself again," he said, reading me like an open book. I shrugged, avoiding his gaze. "Maybe I'm doubting you." He stepped closer, his voice low. "What do you want from me, Jamie?" The question hit like a punch. I wanted everything: his trust, his heart, the truth behind his guarded eyes. But all I said was, "I want to know why you're doing this." "Why me?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he took my hand, his thumb brushing my knuckles. "Because you're the only one who makes me feel human." My breath caught. Before I could respond, a car screeched to a stop beside us. A man in a black suit stepped out, his face grim. "Mr. Caldwell, we have a problem. The board's calling an emergency meeting." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't let go of my hand. "Stay with me," he said, and I wasn't sure if he meant tonight or forever. The meeting was a blur of accusations and power plays. Someone had leaked sensitive company data, and fingers pointed at Ethan. Victoria's smirk told me she was behind it, or at least happy to watch him burn. I sat in the corner, invisible, watching Ethan fight for control. He was brilliant, deflecting every attack with precision, but I saw the strain in his eyes. Afterward, he drove us to his penthouse, the city blurring past. Inside, he poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handing me one. "They're coming for me," he said, his voice raw. "And they'll come for you too, if you stay." I set the glass down, untouched. "I'm not going anywhere." He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, not for himself, but for me. "You don't understand what this world does to people." "Then show me," I said, stepping closer. "Let me in, Ethan." He kissed me then, fierce and desperate, like I was the only thing keeping him grounded. The world fell away, and for a moment, it was just us 2 broken souls finding solace in each other. The kiss changed everything. It was a line crossed, a wall shattered. Ethan's hands were on my face, his lips tasting of whiskey and need, and I was drowning in him. But when we pulled apart, the world rushed back, and with it, the weight of what we'd done. We didn't talk about it. Not that night. Not the next day. Ethan threw himself into damage control, working late to counter the board's attacks. I painted, pouring my confusion into the canvas. The centerpiece was taking shoppy, chaotic cityscape, alive with color. But at its heart, two figures stood together, their outlines blurred, like they were still finding each other. The studio became our sanctuary. Ethan would show up after midnight, tie loosened, eyes heavy with exhaustion. We'd talk about art, about dreams, about everything but the kiss. I wanted to ask what it meant, but fear kept me silent. What if it was a mistake? What if I was just a moment to him? One evening, he arrived with a rare smile. I have something for you. He handed me a key, small and silver, glinting in the studio's light. It's to a gallery in Chelsea. I'm buying it. For your work. I stared at the key, my heart racing. Ethan, this is too much. Nothing's too much for you, he said, his voice soft but firm. You deserve this, Jamie. I wanted to believe him, but Victoria's words echoed in my head. He doesn't do feelings. Was this his way of keeping me close without risking his heart? I pushed the thought away, focusing on the canvas instead. The painting was nearly done, and the foundation's launch was weeks away. Ethan was counting on me, and I couldn't let him down. But the world outside wasn't as kind. Paparazzi started lurking near the studio, snapping photos of me leaving, of Ethan's car parked outside. Headlines appeared online. Caldwell's mystery man. Who's the barista in his life? The comments were brutal, tearing into my clothes, my background, my existence. I tried to ignore them, but each one chipped away at my confidence. Ethan noticed. One night, he found me staring at my phone, my hand shaking. He took it from me, his face dark with anger. Don't read that garbage. They're saying I'm using you, I said, my voice breaking. That I'm nothing. He cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. You are everything. Don't let them define you. His words were a lifeline, but the pressure was building. The board's attacks intensified, and rumors swirled that Ethan's leadership was faltering. Victoria was relentless, planting stories that painted him as reckless, distracted by a nobody like me. I hated that I was a liability, but when I suggested stepping back, Ethan shut me down. You're not leaving, he said, his voice like steel. Not now. Not ever. The foundation's launch was a high-stakes gamble. Ethan had poured millions into it, banking on its success to silence his critics. My painting was the centerpiece, and the pressure was crushing. I worked late, perfecting every detail. But doubt gnawed at me. What if it wasn't enough? What if I failed him? The night before the launch, Ethan found me in the studio, surrounded by paint cans and self-doubt. He didn't say anything, just pulled me into his arms. I buried my face in his chest, breathing him in. I'm scared, I admitted. So am I, he whispered, and it was the most vulnerable I'd ever heard him. But we're in this together. We stayed like that, holding each other as the city hummed outside. For the first time, I felt like we could face anything until the next morning, when everything fell apart. I arrived at the gallery to find the painting gone. The canvas, my heart and soul poured into it, was missing. Security footage showed a figure in a hoodie slipping out with it in the dead of night. Ethan was livid, his calm facade shattered as he barked orders into his phone. But I saw the truth in his eyes. Someone was targeting us, and they weren't stopping. The gallery was a crime scene, cordoned off with yellow tape as police combed through the evidence. My painting, the centerpiece of Ethan's dream, was gone, and with it, my confidence. I stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching Ethan argue with the detectives. His voice was controlled, but his hands were fists, betraying his rage. "This wasn't random," he said, his eyes scanning the room like he could find the thief himself. "Someone knew what they were doing." I wanted to believe it was just a cruel twist of fate. But deep down, I knew he was right. Victoria's smug face flashed in my mind. She'd been gunning for Ethan since the gala, and this felt like her kind of move, calculated, vicious. But we had no proof, and the launch was hours away. Ethan pulled me aside, his hand firm on my shoulder. "We'll fix this," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "You're not done yet." "Fix it." I laughed, bitter. "It's gone, Ethan. Everything I poured into that canvas gone." He grabbed my chin, tilting my face up to meet his. "You're still here. That's what matters." His words should have comforted me, but they only deepened the ache. I'd let him down, and the weight of it was crushing. The launch was a disaster waiting to happen, but Ethan refused to cancel. "We go forward," he said. "We show them we're stronger than this." By some miracle, we pulled it together. Ethan's team scrambled, replacing the centerpiece with a digital projection of my sketches, rough, unfinished, but raw and real. The gallery filled with New York's elite. Their whispers now about the theft, about Ethan's gamble, about me. I stood by the projection, my stomach in knots, as Ethan took the stage. He spoke with fire, outlining his vision for the foundation, a lifeline for artists like me, people the world overlooked. His eyes found mine as he said, "This is about giving voice to those who've been silenced." The room applauded, but I saw the strain in his jaw, the worry he hid from everyone else. After the speech, he pulled me into a back room, away from the crowd. "You did it," he said, his voice low. "You saved this." "I didn't do anything," I said, shaking my head. "This was you." He stepped closer, his hand brushing mine. "It was us." The air between us was electric. But before I could say anything, his phone rang. He answered, his face darkening. "What do you mean?" "They found it." The painting had been recovered, dumped in an alley near the gallery, slashed to ribbons. The police had no leads, but the message was clear. Someone wanted us to fail. Ethan's eyes burned with fury, but he didn't let it consume him. Instead, he turned to me. "We're not done fighting." The next week was a blur of investigations and headlines. The theft made national news, painting Ethan as a reckless dreamer and me as his charity case. I hated the spotlight, but Ethan thrived in it, spinning the narrative to keep the foundation alive. He was a force of nature, but I saw the toll it took: late nights, missed meals, the weight of an empire on his shoulders. One night, I found him in his penthouse, staring out at the city. He looked exhausted, human in a way that made my heart ache. "You don't have to do this alone," I said, stepping beside him. He didn't look at me. "I've always done it alone." "Not anymore," I said, and I meant it. He turned then, his eyes searching mine. "Why do you stay, Jamie? This world, it'll tear you apart." "Because you're worth it," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "And because I love you." The words slipped out before I could stop them, raw and unguarded. Ethan froze, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I thought I'd ruined everything. Then he pulled me into his arms, kissing me with a hunger that stole my breath. It wasn't gentle, it was a collision, a release of everything we'd held back. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "You do," I said, and for the first time, I believed it. My confession hung between us, a fragile truth in the quiet of Ethan's penthouse. He didn't say he loved me back, but the way he held me fierce, like I was the only thing keeping him tethered, said enough. For now, it was enough. The world outside didn't stop, though. The foundation's launch had been a success, but the slashed painting cast a long shadow. Ethan was relentless, chasing leads on the thief while keeping the company afloat. I threw myself into a new piece, determined to replace what was lost, but the pressure was suffocating. Every brushstroke felt like a test I was failing. Victoria was circling closer. She showed up at the studio one afternoon, her smile sharp as a blade. "You're still here," she said, eyeing my half-finished canvas. "I thought you'd have run by now." "I don't run," I said, though my voice shook. She stepped closer, her perfume cloying. "Ethan's a collector. You know. He picks up pretty things, plays with them, then discards them. You're not special, Jamie." I wanted to snap back, but her words hit too close to home. Ethan was a storm, beautiful, powerful, and unpredictable. What if I was just a fleeting obsession? I pushed the thought down, focusing on the paint, but it lingered like a bruise. That night, Ethan took me to dinner at a quiet restaurant in the village, a rare escape from his world. He was different here, softer, laughing as I told him about my disastrous first art class. But even here, eyes followed us. A photographer snapped a picture from across the street, and Ethan's smile vanished. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice tight. "This is what it's like with me." "I can handle it," I said, but I wasn't sure I could. The next day, a tabloid ran the photo with a headline, "Caldwell's boy toy, love or leverage." My stomach churned as I read the article, a vicious mix of half-truths and lies. It painted me as a gold digger, Ethan as a fool. I wanted to hide, but Ethan was already on the phone with his PR team, his voice like ice as he demanded a retraction. They don't matter, he told me later, but his eyes were haunted. I'll protect you. I wanted to believe him, but the cracks were showing. The board was restless, and Victoria was feeding their doubts, whispering that Ethan's focus on me was costing the company. At a tense meeting, she presented evidence of another leak internal emails that painted Ethan as distracted, unfit to lead. The board demanded a vote of no confidence. Ethan fought back, his brilliance on full display. But I saw the toll. He was burning out, and I was part of the fire. That night, I found him in his office, staring at a photo of us from the gala. This was supposed to be simple, he said, his voice raw. I thought I could keep you safe. You can't control everything, I said, sitting beside him. But you don't have to do this alone. He looked at me, his eyes softening. I don't know how to do thesis. Then we'll figure it out, I said, taking his hand. Together. The next morning, we got a break. The police traced the slashed painting to a hired thug, who confessed to working for someone inside Caldwell Enterprises. The trail led to Victoria. Ethan confronted her in the boardroom, his voice deadly calm as he laid out the evidence. She denied it, her composure cracking, but the board didn't buy it. She was out, effective immediately. It should have been a victory, but it felt hollow. The damage was done. Ethan's reputation, my privacy, our fragile connection, all battered. I painted through the night, channeling the chaos into a new piece, two figures in a storm, holding on to each other as the world raged around them. When Ethan saw it, he didn't speak. He just pulled me close, his breath warm against my neck. This is us, he said, and I knew he meant it. Victoria's fall was swift, but the aftermath lingered. The board stabilized, but Ethan's enemies didn't vanish, they just got quieter, waiting for another chance to strike. I felt their eyes on me, judging, waiting for me to slip. But Ethan was a rock, shielding me even as he rebuilt his empire. The new painting became our lifeline. I worked on it obsessively, every stroke a declaration of what we were becoming. Ethan would sit in the studio, watching, his presence steadying me. Sometimes he'd talk about his childhood, his father's expectations, the weight of being Ethan Caldwell. Other times, we'd just sit in silence. The city's hum, our only soundtrack. One night, he brought me to the rooftop of his penthouse, the city sprawling below like a canvas of light. He handed me a glass of wine, his fingers lingering on mine. I've never brought anyone up here, he said, his voice soft. This is my place, my escape. I looked at him, his profile sharp against the skyline. Why me? He turned, his eyes intense. Because you see me. Not the CEO, not the name. Just me. My heart swelled, but fear crept in. What if I mess this up? Ethan, what if I'm not enough? He stepped closer, his hand cupping my face. You're more than enough. You're everything. He kissed me then, slow and deep, the city fading away. It wasn't just desire, it was trust, vulnerability, a promise. When we pulled apart, I saw something new in his eyes, hope. But hope was fragile. The next day, a new scandal broke. Someone leaked personal emails between Ethan and nothing explicit, but intimate enough to sting. The headlines were merciless: Caldwell's secret romance exposed. My name was everywhere. My past dragged through the mud. They found my old art school records, my financial struggles, even my estranged family. I felt stripped bare, my life a spectacle for strangers. Ethan was furious, vowing to find the source. But I was crumbling. I hid in the studio, avoiding my phone, avoiding him. When he found me, I was sitting on the floor, surrounded by paint and self-doubt. I can't do this, I said, my voice breaking. I'm not strong enough for your world. He knelt beside me, his hands gentle on my shoulders. You're stronger than you know, and I'm not letting you go. I wanted to believe him, but the weight was too much. I pulled away, needing space, needing to breathe. He let me go, but his eyes were heavy with hurt. I'll wait, he said, as long as it takes. I spent the next few days in my tiny apartment, avoiding the world. My landlord left a notice rent was due, and I was out of cash. The foundation had paid for the studio, but my life was still a mess. I thought about running, leaving New York, leaving Ethan. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, felt his touch, heard his voice saying he'd wait. I went back to the studio, determined to finish the painting. It was more than art, no, it was us. Our story. Our fight. I worked through the night, pouring everything into it, the pain, the love, the hope. When it was done, I called Ethan. He arrived at dawn, his eyes tired but warm. He stood before the canvas, silent, taking in the two figures in the storm, their hands clasped, their faces lit by a faint glow. It's perfect, he said, his voice thick with emotion. It's us, I said, echoing his words from before. He turned to me, his hand finding mine. I love you, Jamie. I should have said it sooner. The words hit like a wave, washing away my doubts. I kissed him, fierce and certain, knowing we'd face whatever came next together. Ethan's confession was a turning point, a light in the dark. But the world didn't stop throwing punches. The leaked emails were just the beginning. Someone was still out there, pulling strings, trying to tear us apart. Ethan hired a private investigator, determined to root out the traitor. But the answers were slow coming. I threw myself into the foundation's next event, a showcase for young artists. My new painting was the centerpiece, and the response was overwhelming. Critics called it raw, powerful, a testament to resilience. For the first time, I felt like I belonged not just in Ethan's world, but in my own. But the spotlight came with a cost. Hate mail started arriving at the studio, letters, emails, even a brick through the window with a note, leave him or else. I didn't tell Ethan at first, not wanting to add to his stress. But he noticed my silence, the way I flinched at sudden noises. "You're hiding something," he said one night, his voice gentle but firm. We were in his penthouse, the city glittering below. I showed him the latest letter, my hand shaking. His face darkened, and he pulled me into his arms. "No one's touching you. I swear it." He doubled security, but the threats kept coming. The investigator finally got a disgruntled former employee with ties to Victoria. She'd been exiled, but her influence lingered, a poison seeping through Ethan's world. The employee confessed to the leaks, the brick, everything, but claimed Victoria was the mastermind. She was gone, out of the country, untouchable for now. Ethan was relentless, vowing to track her down, but I saw the toll it took. He was stretched thin, balancing the company, the foundation, and us. One night, I found him asleep at his desk, papers scattered around him. I covered him with a blanket, my heart aching. He was fighting for me, for us, but at what cost? The foundation's next event was a gala, bigger than the first, a chance to cement its success. I was nervous, but Ethan was my anchor. He wore a tux that made my knees weak, and when he took my hand, the room faded away. "You're my home," he whispered, and I believed him. The gala was a triumph, but as we danced, I felt eyes on us, not just curiosity, but malice. I spotted a man in the crowd, his face familiar from the security footage. Before I could say anything, he vanished. I told Ethan, and his grip tightened. "Stay close," he said, his voice low. We left early, retreating to the rooftop. The city was quiet, the stars faint against the urban glow. Ethan pulled me close, his hands warm against my back. "I'm tired of running," he said. "I want a life with you, Jamie. No more hiding." I nodded, tears in my eyes. "I want that too." But the past wasn't done with us. The next morning, Ethan got a call the investigator had found Victoria. She was in London, plotting her next move. Ethan booked a flight, determined to confront her. "Come with me," he said, and I didn't hesitate. London was a whirlwind. We tracked Victoria to a sleek office, where she greeted us with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You're persistent," she said, leaning back in her chair. "But you're fighting a losing battle. Ethan, you can't have it all, the company, the boy, the legacy." He didn't flinch. "I already have what matters." She laughed, but it was hollow. "You'll lose him. This world always wins." We left without answers, but Ethan was unshaken. On the plane home, he took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. "She's wrong," he said. "You're my strength, not my weakness." I leaned against him, the hum of the plane lulling me. For the first time, I felt like we could win not just against Victoria, but against the world. Back in New York, we rebuilt. The threats stopped. Victoria's influence faded. and the foundation thrived. My paintings were selling. Galleries clamoring for more. But it was the quiet moments with Ethan that meant the most: late nights in the studio. Mornings tangled in his sheets. His laughter when I smeared paint on his face. The company stabilized. Ethan's leadership unquestioned. He was still the cold CEO to the world. But with me, he was different, open, vulnerable. Mine. We moved in together. His penthouse now ours. Filled with my art and our shared dreams. One evening, he took me back to the rooftop. The place where it all began. The city sparkled below. A testament to everything we'd overcome. He turned to me. His eyes soft but serious. I was wrong before. He said. I thought I had to do this alone. But you changed everything. He pulled a small box from his pocket. And my breath caught. Inside was a simple silver ring, etched with a tiny skyline. I don't know what the future holds, he said, his voice steady. But I know I want you in it. Always. Tears blurred my vision as I nodded, unable to speak. He slipped the ring on my finger, and we kissed, the city bearing witness to our promise. It wasn't a proposal in the traditional sense, just a vow, raw and real, that we'd face the world together. The foundation grew, becoming a beacon for artists like me. We opened more galleries, funded scholarships, gave voices to the voiceless. Ethan was at the heart of it, but he always said I was the spark. I didn't believe him at first, but I was starting to. Years later, we stood in a new gallery, my latest painting unveiled to a packed crowd. It was us 12 figures in a city of light, their hands clasped, their faces alive with hope. Ethan stood beside me, his hand in mine, and I knew we'd made it. The world had tried to break us through theft, scandal, doubt, but we'd held on. Love wasn't just the soft moments. It was the fight, the choice to stay, the courage to be seen. Ethan had captivated everyone, but his heart opened only for me, and mine for him. As the crowd applauded, I leaned into him, my voice a whisper. We did it. He smiled, his eyes warm. We're just getting started.